Hello, good morning. Hello, you beautiful humans. How are you today? Oh, I'm feeling fizzy. It is Tiger Tuesday. And today, we're going to go deep today. I got so much that I want to share with you. But before I do that, I have a few new people in my space. So before we start, I just want to say hi. Welcome to the tribe, to the things that I stand for. And we're going to be going into this a little bit today. I want to be talking about the problems when we don't parent in the present moment, what happens when we're parenting in the past, and what is happening when we're parenting in the future. Now, this is a conversation and not a monologue. So there's nothing worse than sitting here talking to yourself. So if you are on live, come and say hi. If you're watching this back on a replay, make sure you circle back, give me #replay. Let me know what's coming up for you as you're watching the training. So the things that I am standing for in my programs, with my clients, with my children, is owning my shizzle. This means getting deep down dirty and uncomfortable with what is actually going on. It means delving into my stories. It means delving into you delving into your stories, into our truth, into our inner voice, into our past, into our triggers. And yes, sometimes that can be difficult. Sometimes this can be messy, but growth is messy. Growth requires us to dig into dirt, just like the flower digs into the dirt before we're able to come up and expand, right? I'm down for failure and imperfection and vulnerability and courage and having honest conversations with my children about when I've messed up, owning apologies so that they understand how to own what they've done in a respectful way. I am down for respect. I am down for acceptance and love. Most importantly, love is the answer to every single question. I wrote a little song about it. You can find it on Spotify. So I believe that we have this incredible opportunity right now to shape our children's hearts and minds. And the work that I do is very much for parents of under 8's at a push, 7's ideal, anything from about 1.5 to 2 upwards. And most of the work that I do is with the parent, actually, because the more that I can help you navigate your own triggers and truths, and the more that you can stand in your power, the more you are going to enable your child to be able to do the same, because you're the model and not the mirror. Now, this was something that I started on a mission probably about 5 or 6 years ago. And the reason for it was I was stuck in a place where I don't know, I didn't feel like I was living to my fullest. The opportunity that we have to raise conscious, wholehearted, inner-driven children is huge, and it starts now. So if you're already invested in growth, perhaps you're already doing mindfulness, perhaps you're already doing meditation, perhaps you are already, on yoga, breathwork, and you just want to know how you bring this to your parenting, then you are in the right place. Most of the time, the problem is that, and I read this the other day and I thought this was beautiful, and I thought I would share this with you. The definition of madness and insanity is seeing the problem and then doing the same thing over and over. I would love to hear from you if this resonates with you. If you are seeing the problem, whether it's a school run, whether it's morning, whether it's bedtimes, whether it's meal times, whether it's the fact that you are reacting in ways that you're not feeling comfortable with, or you're feeling guilt and shame, just the ability to even notice the problem is the beginning of the battle. And remember that the battle is not with your child. The battle is with yourself, always, because you cannot control another. The only person that you can truly control and own is yourself. If you are getting triggered and reacting in ways that don't feel you good, and then you are struggling with disappointment or shame or guilt, this is your body's way that telling you that you are parenting really in the past or the future? How many of you, I would love to know, how many of you hear your parents' voice? Like I hear my father's all that when I like turn, can you turn the lights off? Lights off is a big one in my house at the moment with the current electricity crisis. Lights. I sound like my father. And when I hear myself, and this is this ability to be able to detach and notice what is actually going on in the present moment, because 95% of our behavior is happening completely on autopilot, particularly based on the programming that we receive in the first 7 years of life. Now, most parents, I'm assuming if you're in my space, this is also you, realize that reacting on autopilot or shouting or getting or screaming or trying to control or manipulate or coerce your children is not an ideal way to raise an awesome human. And so why are we doing it? Well, it's very, very simple. Quite often we are distracted. We're thinking about work. We're packing lunches. We're like juggling more than one child, several children in some cases. We're trying to find socks. It's too easy to go straight onto autopilot and become the machine. But the danger of staying in this place is that you are going to be repeating the same problem over and over. Einstein tells us that you cannot solve a problem with the same state of mind that created it. So what this requires of us is detachment. And detachment is something that I bang on about a lot in my programs. Because if you're not clear on how you want to respond, if you've not practiced it and rehearsed it in your head, like there is a thing called Hebb's law. So Hebb's law means that the neurons that fire together wire together, right? And what this means is that if we continue to think in the same way, our neurons become active. It's almost like we create like when someone's been walking down a pathway in a wood and lots of people have done it, and it just creates like a pathway or a groove, if you like. And the more we go around in this way of thinking, this groove becomes deeper and which means that not only is it easy to be on autopilot, but it also means that breaking out of that habit can also be really, really difficult, because it's really easy to slip back into the groove. Perhaps you're reading all the parenting books. Perhaps you're doing all of the things, but unless you change, like from a habit point of view, it takes 21 days to form a new habit. Unless you can practice new ways of thinking about the situation that you are in and a new approach, you are going to carry on going round in circles. Now, I say this from a place of not being a perfect parent. There is no such thing. Do I occasionally lose my shizzle? Yes. Do I occasionally shout at my children? Yes. Does this mean I'm a bad parent? No. It means I'm also dealing with all of the same things that everybody else is. I'm a full-time single parent of 2 children. You know, I have a past. It means I'm showing up and doing the work. It means that I invest in myself. It means I make time for mindfulness. It means I make time for yoga. It means I make time to fill my cup, because I know the only time that I'm reacting and not responding is when my cup is not full. Simple as. But I also understand the energetics of what I'm delivering to my children, because I know, and you know this too, right? Because I know you were all shouted at as children, like, and if you weren't shouted at any given time, then you know, when someone's shouting at you, you can't hear them. You can't hear what they're saying because you go into a state of fight or flight. Fear, anger, all of these are lower based emotional frequencies. And when this is being projected onto your children can't hear what you're saying. They can't process, right? And then worse, what's happening is then they are going to be following an instruction out of fear, out of control. I grew up in a very authoritative household. My father was a very angry, reactive man. No judgment. My grandfather went to war, came back highly reactive to a 5-year-old who didn't really know his dad. My grandfather had PTSD, highly reactive, took this out on my father. My father then highly reactive, obviously didn't know. We didn't know, like, I have no judgment for my parents or their situation. I genuinely come from the place that I think everybody's doing the very best that they can, given their life experiences, useful to apply to yourself as well. Like, if we knew better, we would do better. And I feel like the job is to know as much as we can about ourselves, about what is going on, what is actually our shit, or what is actually coming from what's been passed down to us, projected onto us. And do we want to be showing up, if we're honest, in the way that our parents did? Do we want to be reacting and talking in the same way? Or do we want to be mindful and conscious of how we're showing up? Do we want to be parenting from an energy of love? Because I know that when I am on my child's level and I'm speaking to him like a human being and explaining what is going on, and I'm noticing my triggers and I'm breathing through them and choosing, and ultimately is a choice, not to react from that place, which is going to then lead to a spiral of shame and guilt and bleh. And choosing to respond from a place of values and knowing what the intention is for my children and the relationship that I want for them, then I'm going to be delivering things from an energy and a frequency of love. It's very, very simple. And when someone teaches, when your child is listening to you, the tone of your voice is different, the way that you're standing is different, the energy in the message is different. And then they're able to receive what it is that you're saying. Particularly true if you have, like, I have a child who struggles with processing more than 20 words. And this is a real lesson. Are you talking too much? Are your children? Think about it. Like, sometimes we are saying so many things to our children. We need to be ready on time, for example. Oh my goodness. On time. What does that even mean? We need to be ready on time. This is made up of so many different components. Like, you need to, like, getting dressed. But again, when we talk about being ready to our children, this is a huge, massive concept that takes years to understand what being ready means. It means having our breakfast. It means being washed and dressed. It means having our shoes on. It means having our bags by the door. Like, there's millions of, not millions, but there's lots and lots of components that make this incredibly difficult for our children to grasp these massive high-level concepts. I'm telling you now, even just breaking down the language of what you do to very simple, short instructions is going to be a game changer for you. I've just got I always have my notes before I go live, because I know that when I come on, like, I go off in little tangents. Most of all, like, people in my places, they are worried they are going to screw their child up forever. And what I know for sure is when people come into my containers, when people do my trainings, when people contact me, there is one very, very common thread. And that every single one of them wants to be the very best parent that they can, and they feel like they are failing in some way. And I like to unpick things like failure. I like to unpick things like guilt and shame, and I like to and get to the bottom of them, because for me, there is no such thing as perfection. It just does not exist. So are you putting unnecessary expectations on yourself? And I'm actually writing an email series at the moment. If you're on my email list, I'm going to be saying, I have the most beautiful email series that I'm sending out, where we're actually going to be talking about this in a lot more detail. Because when I'm very clear on my values, my intention, the relationship that I want for my children, and the values that I want to instill, and I'm able to trust in that, what that allows me to do is to let go of the expectations that I have in the present moment. Because when you have an expectation in the present moment, this is where all of the stress lies. I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again. Any expectation that you have for your child is going to stop you. This means that you're parenting in the future, right? This again means we're not parenting in the present moment. It means that you have an expectation that you expect your child to understand all of the things that you're saying, understand all of the nuances, understand all the little different things that make up the thing that you've just said. And you have an image in your mind of how things need to be panning out. It's interesting, I always find as well, because I do a lot of visualization techniques, is when we do have expectations and visions, which are different, we never actually have a timescale for them. And I always think that sometimes we have a vision in our head, but we haven't yet, perhaps we then become disappointed because the vision that we have is not matching up with the reality, but there's a disconnect, and that is time. I'm not going to go into time today, otherwise I'll really I am a timeline therapist as well. Time is not linear. I'm not going to go into it today because it's just way too much of a little squirrel, like a little squirrel line to go down to. But the results that the parents that I work with want, what they want is peace of mind. They want a great relationship with their children. They want to raise an awesome human. They want to be the best version of self they can, and they want to live without guilt and shame. If this is you, I would love to hear from you. Please type "this is me" down the bottom, right? And here's the problem. If you continue to focus on the problem, then it means that you are reacting from the past, focusing on the problem, which means it gets bigger in your mind, setting expectations that perhaps are unachievable, which means then potentially you're parenting in the future. And the goal is to parent in the present moment with what is actually going on, which requires us to not be on autopilot. It requires us to have filled our cup, and it requires us to parent from a place of values, intention, and response, as opposed to reactivity. So, I would love to know, as a parting question, first of all, what was your biggest takeaway from today? Because I'm always looking to improve my trainings. But I really want to know from you, how guilt and shame, if you do react from a place of the past or the future, if you are reacting, how does this then affect your parenting? And I want you to dig into this, and I want you to actually have some self-reflection on this today. I would like you to think about, how does the guilt and shame then affect your parenting? Because I don't know about you, I then overcompensate. I might maybe change boundaries that perhaps I would have been really clear on, that I might give into, which then does not help my children anyway, because children need a really clear container. It can show up for me as perhaps over rewarding, and I'm just interested to know self-reflection from you today, because that is the goal of all of the work that I do. Introspection and self-reflection as to how, if you react in ways that are not in alignment with your values, how that then shows up in your parenting afterwards. I would really love to know. So that is me for today. Fear to Fierce experience, I'm super excited, is kicking off in February. I'm booking in calls right now. If you think that you would like to go deeper with your parenting, if you would like to raise a wholehearted and confident child, I'm going to drop a little link down the bottom. I offer a free coffee and a chat for me to just find out exactly where you are, to see, like, you can ask any questions you may have about the process that we go through. At the very worst case scenario, you are going to leave with perhaps some tools and some techniques and some strategies that you can go and implement straight away. So come with what's on your heart, come with what's on your biggest problem right now, and together we can figure out a next step for you. I will drop a link down below if you would like to book a free call. There's no obligation, obviously. I don't do that. For me, the Fierce to Fierce container, we are building a family. These are people that I not only work with over a period of of years. My last container extended by another 6 months. These people become my friends. So I am particularly, I know very much, I'm very clear about who this experience is for and who it isn't for. So if you're interested in booking a call, I will drop it down below. In the meantime, I would like to know your reflections, and I will see you next Tuesday. I love saying that. It's so naughty, isn't it? I will see you next Tuesday for Tiger Tuesday. Stay fierce.